If you have been here for a while, you know that I take several longevity supplements, including NMN, which is a direct precursor to a very important molecule we have in every cell in our body called NAD, and fisetin, which, amongst other things, is a senolytic compound that can help reduce the amount of senescent cells, also known as zombie cells, we accumulate in our body. If you're curious about NMN, fisetin, or any of the other longevity supplements I take, I will link all of the videos I've done on those supplements down below in the info box. Recently, I came across a skincare line which puts several of the ingredients I take internally into their products, which of course right away intrigued me. So in today's video, we are talking to Anastasia and Amitay, the founders of, as they call it, the world's first biohacking skincare, Young Goose, to learn about why they think including these sort of ingredients into topical products might be beneficial. So without further ado, let's talk to Anastasia and Amitay from Young Goose. Thank you so much for being here, Anastasia and Amitay. I'm really grateful you're taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, it's our pleasure, definitely.
I mentioned in the intro that you say that Young Goose is the first biohacking skincare in the world. Tell us this really briefly for people who aren't familiar with the term biohacking. What does that mean, biohacking?
The way that Dave Asprey defines it, who coined the term really, is the art and science of affecting the environment, either the environment within us or the environment around us, in order to positively impact our biology.
The way we are the first biohacking skincare brand is that when we were formulating our products, we wanted to look at underlying cellular processes. A lot of the skincare on the market, if you look in their messaging or their ingredients, they really are there to alleviate, let's call it symptoms, signs of aging, but they do it through very kind of like antiquated ways and antiquated ingredients. And thankfully, right now, we're living in a time where there's so much breakthrough and there's so much knowledge. So we really focused on ingredients that are not commonly seen in skincare, but we have the studies and there are studies around those ingredients to back up that they're actually very efficient for skin health. And those will be things like cosmetics, senolytics, NAD precursors. So again, things that sometimes and most of the times we were the first ones to put into skincare.
Most of the time when you approach like a longevity lab, like Harvard has one, the Weizmann Institute in Israel has one, when you come to them and you say, hey, kind of use your research for skincare, they would have never imagined in a million years that someone's going to ask them to do that. And that's very interesting for us because no one else gives them the respect, if you would, in really translating what they're researching into what people are interested in. And sometimes it's how their skin looks.
And sometimes when we think about skin, like you said, how skin looks, we think about it as a superficial thing. But the skin is obviously our biggest organ. It is quite important to take care of it. And I've talked to you before, Amitay, you told me that there are studies saying that somebody's biological age can be pretty much told by the way somebody's skin looks. So talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about, we know we have a biological and a chronological age. Talk
Yes.
a little bit about that.
The first time someone made the correlation between our chronological age, our skin's appearance, and our biological age was over 10 years ago, almost 15 years ago. And what they showed is that if you ask, to really make a long story short, if you ask a bunch of people, hey, rate the age of this person, and then you draw a bunch of biomarkers to see really how functionally young or biologically young that person is, there is amazing correlation. Like the deviation is in a few years, like 2-3 years. Almost a decade later, what we started seeing with the rise of machine learning and AI, we started to see research become interested in how do you quantify it and how do you convert it into something AI can do. And what we are seeing, obviously, with the revolution of AI and medicine nowadays, is that it's actually the carrot has risen on the farmer, as we say in Hebrew. Well, what happens is that we are seeing companies are trying to predict biological age, to predict illnesses, to predict different conditions by the way AI can extrapolate visual appearance. So we're really seeing that come full circle. But, to your question, there is ample evidence that these are intrinsically linked. More than that, when we are starting to have different processes, such as senescent cells, for example, in the skin become more and more exacerbated due to age, the skin being the largest organ, being an organ that is really the avant-garde of our body, really, as far as communicating with the environment, together with our eyes, the sense of smell, the olfactory system. These are the avant-garde systems. So they are kind of transmitting information from the environment back to the brain. And we're starting to see when these aging mechanisms start to become more and more burdensome, we're starting to see how they drive aging in the body. So not only the older we are biologically, our skin looks worse, but also the older our skin is biologically, by the hallmarks of aging, it actually drives aging in the rest of the body. And research is starting to show that.
And I would just like to add, I'm sure your viewers know different companies that access biological aging, and a lot of it translates. So the biological age that they get through this panel can translate into the functional age of the skin as well, because obviously the biomarkers that show them to be younger than their chronological age, often the same ones, that will be responsible for some of the genes that we call them youthfulness genes. These are the genes that are responsible for collagen production, elastin, hyaluronic acid. And also, as Amitay kind of alluded to, but the opposite is true too. Like, unfortunately, we have met and, some customers reached out that they're quite young. They can be in their mid-20s, they can be in their mid-30s. And because of so much toxins and different other hormone disruptors, their biological age can be significantly older than their chronological age. And that really shows up on their skin as well.
Now, you brought up a lot of things I want to circle back to. You talked about senescence, you talked about toxins. I want to circle back to that. But first, I want to talk about how you even started creating a skincare line, because as I understand, it was a bit of a happy accident, right? You weren't planning on getting into the skincare business.
First of all, you never know accidents are happy when they're happy.
It's true.
So, happiness is it comes after, but yeah, it's a pretty interesting story, Anastasia. I don't know if you want to.
I can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can chime in. Yeah, over like 10 years ago, we were fascinated with NAD plus, and at the time, getting NADAV was extremely expensive, and we were really looking to find a solution where we could have it more affordable, but we were looking for boosting NAD plus systemically, but we wanted to see if it's possible through topical application. And we exited some company before, so we had a financial reserve to put into research, and we were on a mission to create a topical that will boost NAD plus systemically. Then we figured out that skin really likes it. Like, skin keeps it for its own processes. So that
the skin is selfish.
Yes. So it did not have a systemic effect, which we never claim for our products, but it does have the effect for skin cells in particular, and then it boosts the skin processes and skin health. So that's how we made the lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah. What we did find out, and that's a whole different our discussion, we did find out it doesn't really matter. I mean, we could have the biological age, or what we call functional age, we believe it's a more correct term, younger, but really the skin doesn't look better if we just, maybe autofluorescence, but if we just dial down its functional age. It just is like potential. But the skin doesn't know a wrinkle is an issue, or a hyperpigmented area is an issue, or laxity is an issue. the skin doesn't keep a list of how it looked when it was younger, and it works back to it. So what we found out is that we couldn't just have a company that is one product that is going to solve all the world's problems. Actually, we have learned that there is no such thing. You cannot have only like one ingredient or one, cluster of ingredients that will solve all your problems. What we found out is that we need to create a signal for repair and then support that repair with activating sirtuins, which are the anti-aging genes, etc., boosting NAD and all the good stuff.
So your flagship product has NAD precursors, not NAD, but NAD precursors, correct? Can you tell us which ones are you using? NR, NMN?
For sure. So
you spoiled it. That's it. Next question.
Sorry.
By explaining why didn't we put a whole molecule of NAD plus. So the molecule is quite large and it's impossible for it to penetrate the skin barrier. So we're not going to name names, but there are companies out there nowadays that have NAD plus as a whole molecule in their formulation. And the truth is, it's nothing but a buzzword. It will not actually penetrate the skin.
For statistics, it's about 50 times larger than the size it should be if we wanted to absorb.
It's the same with taking NAD internally. People always ask me, why do you take a precursor instead of just NAD? Because the molecule is too big.
That is a great example. And another great example is collagen. If we remember 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, where we had collagen in almost every product under the sun, as far as skincare is concerned. And the reason there are no serious company or whatever company with a conscious ethical company has collagen now in their product is because we have learned it is significantly larger than the size that we need, larger than a pore, so it cannot penetrate.
Exactly. To point to your question, yes, the NAD plus itself would never penetrate. And then the precursors that we use is literally everything that constitutes the NAD plus molecule, but primarily the main components will be NR and NMN, both of them.
But the debate is not that or the other. The debate is how do we make it into the best, first of all, absorbable, that's obvious, but into the best cluster of precursors that communicate the body's language. The body can recognize them in their different levels, and then obviously utilize them to reassemble NAD where it really needs it, by the way, which is within the cell. It's not even penetrating the skin. It's penetrating the skin and connecting to a highway that is already pre-built to get those molecules into the cell, where it then rebuilds NAD, which is really where NAD is used in the body.
Okay. So I know you have studies. Let's talk about the studies. Your NAD cream, or the cream containing NAD precursors, does it actually raise NAD in the skin? And if so, what does that translate to?
That's a great question. And normally we wouldn't care, as we kind of alluded to before, does it raise NAD levels or not? That wouldn't be the end goal of the study, right? It would be like, okay, check mark. Now, what does it mean? And that is a great question. So what does it mean? First of all, it means that we can support two systems that in the skin are in competition. And that's actually something very unique to the skin, which are, I call it the police of the DNA and the fire department of the DNA. Okay, so our DNA basically determines the biological age. It determines how our cells function, if they can create collagen, elastin, hyaluronic acid, use all these ingredients, create new cells, etc., etc., etc. So when we are getting sun damage, pollution, we're aging, whatever that is, we are creating DNA damage. And that DNA damage, we need the fire department of the DNA that is called PARPs. And guess what? The fuel for those enzymes are NAD. And we did allude before to sirtuins, which are the police of the DNA. They keep the DNA in order, functioning correctly, but they don't really repair damage as much as they maintain order. The older we get, the more demand PARPs have for NAD, the fire department. And think of your house, if your house is on fire, even though looters are going to come, the first priority is to put out the fire, or else we won't have a house, right? So the body prioritizes PARPs, and what happens is that our DNA basically deteriorates. The order of the DNA deteriorates, and that is very important. That's why in the skin it's very, very, very important to fuel these two different families of enzymes. Okay. Now, again, that is not really the end result. The end result is what can we see as far as satisfaction? What can we see as far as like wrinkles, laxity, autofluorescence, pigmentation, etc. And that we showed great results. Again, the older the person is, when I say older, I obviously mean functional biological age, the better results we see. What we see with other studies that we have done is that for people, let's say that they are under 50, we really want to combine it with something like a product that stimulates renewal in order to drive those great results. We do have the same stations I described along the way. Let's say our Senolytic study measured, we measured, senescent cell elimination, but then we measured a protein that is associated with aging, which is called progerin. If anyone knows the disease progeria or seen the Robin Williams movie where he grows really old really fast, I don't know why they also made him grow taller. I don't know, but they know that's not. But it grows really old really fast. This is progeria, so we can measure that as well, and then also do before and afters to show how the end result looks like. But we normally follow this trajectory of, measurement. What does it mean, and what are the results that we can get?
Now, you talked about senolytic cells again, so let's talk about that. My viewers are very familiar with senescent cells and senolytic compounds such as fisetin, for example. Talk about, first of all, why do we have to worry about senescent cells in the skin? And what do you use to address that problem?
This is really Anastasia's realm, but I would just start by saying, I'll warm her up by saying that the more cellular turnover, the more renewal is happening in a tissue, the end result of that is that we're going to see more senescent cells there. Senescent cells, malfunctioning cells as a whole, okay? In our skin, because again, the stimulation from the environment for renewal because of the damages of sun, pollution, etc., and also because it is an organ that renews itself very often, it is the organ with the most amount of senescent cells as in total. I would like to point out that there's a group of researchers in Portugal that are to blame for everything that I'm going to say, and really the props should go to them. But what happens is as I said, our skin accumulates a lot of senescent cells, which one of their features is basically infecting other cells. That's why they're called zombie cells, because it's a snowball. The more senescent cells we have, and they infect other cells, etc. And as we kind of alluded to before, our skin is really a communication organ between the environment and our brain. There is something called the skin-brain axis, and our skin is actually plugged into the system in our brain, which is called the HPA axis, which is basically the modulator for stress, and by hijacking that system. So imagine if we have that constant communication, but then there is the skin as a major communicator is starting to send inflammatory signals, is starting to send the wrong signals, stressful signals, because again, these cells create stress to the brain. And it's starting to overload the brain with inflammation, with stress, and with confusing signals. So the first thing that's going to happen is that we are going to get elevated stress reverberating throughout our body from that. That's number one. But more than that, what we're going to start to see is aging of the brain, driving of aging of the brain due to that infection of inflammation and senescence. And our brain is obviously the ground central for aging and for communication in the body. And so we're starting to get aging driven throughout our body through that communication between our skin and our brain.
That's why the elimination of the senescent cells was definitely one of the key agenda for us as a company that wants to look at the underlying, cellular processes that lead to skin aging, and in this case, also whole body aging. So that's why it was very important for us to create a Senolytic product.
Now, you mentioned earlier that with your NAD product, we don't see a systemic rise in NAD, but with your Senolytic product, can it actually affect senescent cells inside the body or just the skin?
So we don't have a data to suggest that it goes ahead and eliminates further senescent cells, the ones that accumulated in other organs.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's fair to suggest that by the fact that, so the skin is the organ that has the most amount of accumulation of senescent cells. And as we already explained, the mechanism of action of these cells is that by releasing those pro-inflammatory factors, they go ahead and infect other healthy cells to become senescent cells. So therefore, it is fair to assume that since we're eliminating them from the skin, we're kind of stop them propagating to the rest of the body and infecting more cells.
In a term, it is called senescent burden. So you're relieving the senescent burden that the body is experiencing. You know, if I took some weight off of your shoulders, I am really affecting your shoulders, but I'm affecting also your brain, since obviously it's perceiving less stress, and your heart, because again, it needs to pump less, etc., etc., etc.
So what is it that you use? What senolytic compound do you use in your product?
So the product that we're talking about, it's called ProCare. So this is our Senolytic Anti-Aging Serum. And it's based on 4 main ingredients. In the senolytic ingredient will be algae. So we have 2 types of algae. One has been clinically shown to affect the biomarkers, and this particular product and the study has been done in human cells, actually humans, not just in human cells. So it wasn't just done in vitro, it was done in vivo and through punch biopsies. So we get very deep analysis. It's like the most advanced type of testing you can do for skincare products. And so, yeah, we were able to measure some biomarkers. So one of the types of algae has been shown to activate the activity of the cells becomes up to 20 years younger. So it is very potent, and it turns on those youthful genes that are responsible for stimulating collagen, elastin, hyaluronic acid, all the feeling firming components that makes our skin, tight and firm and youthful. And then another type of algae has been shown like a rapamycin analog effect. So it kind of like causes mTOR, which is the main talk when we talk about senolytic products. And it also has that effect of actually eliminating senescent cells. So these 2 types of algae have really good relationship supporting each other in that realm.
The compounds that were used there, which Anastasia refers to as algae, there's a process that goes between, don't slather, don't find algae in the sea and hit your face with. Not what we want to do. So we use fucoidian, fucoxanthin, and fucoin, which are the 3 compounds that are then building those senolytic effects.
Okay, and those actually have shown to activate the 2 and 6, correct?
Yes, yes. So bladderwrack is the most common SIRT6 activator, and that is why it activates it. It also started, by the way, I don't know if you knew, but it started actually as a weight loss. Like most things in anti-aging somehow started as a weight loss drug. Started as a weight loss drug because of its improvement in metabolism, but that normally doesn't actually, the body kind of balances it out. It actually, you improve metabolism, the body wants to eat more food or other things happen. So it's not as successful as a weight loss drug, but it's definitely a very healthy thing to have. And it's very effective in as a senolytic in the skin specifically. Less so if we're interacting with the digestive tract. Also because it, by the way, like hyaluronic acid, it makes the digestive tract a little bit more sensitive. So the concentration that we can work with in the skin is quite different than the one we can work with if we go through the gut.
Yes. And in this particular serum, we also added 2 more ingredients that play very nicely. One of them is THD ascorbate type of vitamin C. There are so many types of vitamin C. Unfortunately, the most commonly used one in skincare is L-ascorbic acid. Amitay can have another hour rant about how it's toxic, how it's really horrible for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I will just save you from this rant, but I will say that it is all true.
I appreciate that you acknowledged my
yes.
hatred for.
So the THD ascorbate is very different. It's the most gentle. It is also lipid soluble, so it actually penetrates deeper, and so why we want vitamin C in the formulation? For its effects on the skin, such as collagen production and also brightening effects. And it just has an array of anti-aging benefits. It's one of the most research-backed ingredients. And then we also have lilac cell culture there, which have a lot of benefits. It really helps to alleviate pigmentation and make skin produce less melanin, so be less susceptible for having sunspots, age spots, and brightening and fading the existing sunspots, age spots. And you see the pictures of before and after, and the proof is in the pudding.
No one looks like pudding. We're straying away from the realm of science, if you would, and more to the realm of psychology and aesthetics. But there is something called the triangle of youth. Triangle of youth means that when we're young, we have an inverted triangle in our face. So we have our chin and we have our cheekbones, and it goes like that. Exactly, Anastasia is mimicking. And as we grow older, that triangle flips, and we start to get like sagging around our jowls. And again, one of the things we've measured through imaging is the change or the dialing back of that triangle of youth. Just as a bypoint, if someone wants to go into a deep dive on the triangle of youth, it's a pretty interesting concept as far as how our brain interacts with it.
And you're saying your serum has been able to bring people back to more useful proportions as far as the triangle of youth? Okay.
Yes. So because of its firming and lifting effects, that doesn't happen overnight. The study went on for 12 weeks. So obviously you have the best results at that mark. But even as early as 4 weeks, you see some improvement in collagen, and then over time, you do see the lifting. So we're talking about the triangle of youth. Obviously, we do want to set the realistic expectation. It is not facelift, but
but it's definitely healthier for you than the facelift. Yeah,
oh, it's true, and cheaper. Now, you're probably familiar with OneSkin, which also has a product that is supposedly addressing senescent cells. How would you say, what's the biggest difference between you and OneSkin?
Well, it's a great company as far as what they're aiming to do, and we would love to see them succeed. Where we are, first of all, there is a price difference. They're priced less expensive than Young Goose, than especially the Senolytic product that we offer. The second thing is the fact that their Senolytic product is a cream, and even though it's an ingredient, right now what they have is a cream, whereas our Senolytic product is actually a serum. That's number two. Number three, they are talking about a peptide. There is something that we need to think about when we think about peptides. The way that they work is like a lock and a key for the most part. And these receptors are very funny, are very tricky, because we can have too low of a dose, which means we don't get any effect. We can have the perfect dose, which means we're getting an effect. And this effect is your body is getting used to it through the time. That's why when we inject peptide, for example, it's a course. We do it for a while, then we stop. And obviously we can have too much. That would really blunt the receptors. So that is something that we have to address when we talk about peptides. And now when we talk about clinical research, that is something that peptides specifically want to research. That, by the way, we did the same with NAD Noble, which the first study was a safety study. But they are going in a very good direction. Their direction right now is showing results in a petri dish, which is fantastic. But to go from a petri dish all the way to a human, it just requires more studies. But that is for sure going to come, and we are very interested to see, as nerds of the industry, we are very interested to see what the results would be. And then obviously results over time. Maybe, in a few years, they're going to say, hey, we have a much stronger formula, and then you need to use it only 3 times a year. Maybe that's going to be the best course of action, or whatever that may be. But I'm sure we're going to see them as a company evolve. I would like to say that exactly like what I would like to see is exactly like our journey with NAD. We could definitely have stopped there and said, NAD Noble is in every one of our products, and that's all you need, etc. But we found out that there are products that are creating synergy, that 1 + 1 = 3. And what I'm assuming is going to happen in the future is that they're going to discover that as well, because they do have a very impressive scientific backing, financial backing, and I'm sure they're going to do great and evolve it into a more robust, result-driven product.
For anyone watching that is a fan of OneSkin and loves using OneSkin, OneSkin or any other company, I do want to bring out that our products don't have any ingredients that cross-react. So if you already use something and it works for you and you love it, just know that you can combine it with Young Goose products, any product of your choice, so they play well together. And yes, so for anyone that find something that they love and it works for them, don't feel like, after watching this, you have to throw it away and just replace everything with Young Goose. It is not what we're here for.
Yeah. Good to know. Now, you just said a lot of different ingredients play together and are needed for good results. I'm assuming you're a big fan of retinoids as well. I know you do have a retinol serum. So how does that fit in there? How do retinoids fit into the whole biohacking skincare theme?
I think it's maybe like the first real biohacking ingredient in skincare. Yeah.
That's true. Right now, retinoids are under the cancel culture, So there are so many myths. Unfortunately, where we are with the internet, for something to go viral, you want to be negative a lot of the times, and you want to be very controversial, and you just want to say that everything you thought was right is wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's what goes viral. So
but it's only true about L-ascorbic acid.
Yes, that's what's happening with retinoids right now. There is a lot of backlash to it. However, I do want people to know that it's actually the most studied ingredient in skincare. It was first developed for acne, actually, and approved for acne in the 1930s. So since then, there was so much studying, and they found out impressive effects for anti-aging. That's how it made it into the anti-aging skincare. Now, speaking of retinoids, there are different kinds. There is retinoic acid, there are retinaldehydes. So what we are fans of and what we found to be the most effective and gentle form is all trans retinol. So this is what we use in our bioretinol serum. So all trans retinol has a very similar structure to the tretinoin, so the prescription type, a part of one small modification there. So the body actually does eventually get the same.
It turns it into it.
It turns into it, and also you trigger the same effects as tretinoin. But the difference is that it's a lot more gentle. The people that can tolerate tretinoin, they're very far and few in between. So if you can tolerate it, great. I'm not saying that ours is better than that, but I am 100% certain, and we did run a clinical study on it, that ours has a much, much lower chance to trigger retinoid dermatitis. So what is retinoid dermatitis? That's the flaky skin, the redness, the sensitivity that's commonly associated with the use of retinoids. And for many forms of retinoids, that's just a given. That's what you're going to experience. If you want the good, you're going to have to take it with the bad. Luckily, with the bioretinol, with our formulation, first of all, through the type, the all trans retinol, you have much lower chance. Then we played with different formulations, like concentrations, and we stopped at 0.5. This is the concentration that you're actually able to use nightly. And then you get the same results as you would from higher concentration, but you don't get the irritation.
And Anastasia, why is it important to use it nightly? What's going on?
So unfortunately, the retinoid will stay in the system only for 24 hours.
Mhm.
So the best retinoid in general that you can use is the one that you can use nightly, so you have it always in the system. And that's why you really want to find something that you can use nightly.
The expression of that vitamin A. So there is like a stored version and an active version. When our body, this is a molecule that's innate in our body. That's a molecule that's used in our body. So when our body expresses it, there are different glycolipids, phospholipids, cholesterol, etc., that are surrounding that molecule. And we aimed, again, why are we calling it bioretinol? It's because it's biomimetic. We aimed to look at how our body utilizes this molecule and mimic that process. And that's how we came out with it.
I'm going to ask you this question without hopefully offending you, but I know somebody's going to bring
Already offended. What do you mean?
I'm sorry about that.
Starting by getting offended, yeah.
You did mention earlier that your products are more expensive than OneSkin. The products are on the pricier side. I know you have a lot of research behind them, but why are they expensive? Because like I said, somebody's going to ask.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say that even though it is a completely, it's completely understandable if a different company would do it, we actually don't roll the cost of research or R&D even into the cost of the product. Even though companies who do it, let me tell you, as a manufacturer, I completely understand. But that is not actually what makes them expensive. What makes them expensive, first and foremost, are the quality of ingredients. So we use something called pharmaceutical grade ingredients. A common claim is that there is a bigger discrepancy in the supplement industry between one supplement and another than there is between the meat in McDonald's and the meat you can buy in Whole Foods. But the same, or even more so, is true about the skincare industry. The skincare industry is actually completely unregulated, okay? The FDA has no ability to regulate it whatsoever. And what happens is that as long as I can call an ingredient in a name that the FDA knows about, I can really do whatever I want. And we know from friends in the industry where there is going to be, for example, a 100% mineral sunscreen, and when the lab tests it, it's actually not. Okay, it's a chemical sunscreen, etc., etc., etc. In that industry, you can also have second-hand ingredients. So if I bought ingredients, I made my formula, and now I have extra, I'll resell them. I can have ingredients that are older and not really active anymore, rancid ingredients, etc. So there is a standard. There are a few standards. One of them is called Cosmos. That's more in Europe. Another one is what is labeled as pharmaceutical grade ingredients. And that is what we use, again, because we cannot trust some third party that sells us the ingredient. We can only trust that certificate, right? So that's number one. Number two, when we talk about unique ingredients, that's a very tricky thing to source because we're the only ones sourcing them or extracting things from them. So that process does not cheapen. So if we think of milk, okay, imagine how expensive it would be if you were the only one that wanted milk in the world. You know, that would be very expensive, right? There's not going to be industry around it. So sometimes that's what happens, for example, with NAD precursors for skincare specifically, or senolytics, or, you know, now we're adding a topically bioavailable spermidine into some of our products, etc. So these things we're going to be the only one doing. So it makes things very expensive to source. And also the fact that we make basically small batches of products. And the last thing is obviously complexes. Normally, if I say I have, for example, okay, 6% hyaluronic acid, what I can say is either I have 6% pure, low molecular weight hyaluronic acid, or I can say I have 6% of a complex that has hyaluronic acid in it. And good luck, knowing how much hyaluronic acid there is there.
Now, just to wrap this up, I know you guys probably have to go, but if somebody wanted to just invest in one or two of your products, what would you say is the most important, the most potent, the one they can see the biggest difference with?
So that's actually,
it's like picking a favorite baby.
Yeah. But actually, there are two kind of ways to address this question. The first one is if someone is a minimalist, if someone only wants to use one product and boom, get out of the door, right? In that case, we would definitely recommend Care with NAD Noble, NAD boosting moisturizer. And that is because it doesn't only have the NAD Noble patent, but it also has 10 other supportive ingredients, a patent around resveratrol, a good form of vitamin C, something that is a mild senolytic, etc., PQQ, CoQ10. So that's kind of a kitchen sink approach to skincare, and it gives you moisture, which is extremely important. If you are asking that because you have your full routine and you want to give Young Goose a chance, but you have products that you're connected to and you want to keep, then we normally recommend, obviously the care is very important, but we normally recommend the hyperbaric mask, because the hyperbaric mask doesn't actually replace anything. There is no other product like that in the world, and it's actually a gel that is applied on top of your moisturizer and left overnight, and it mimics the skin rejuvenating effects of being in a hyperbaric chamber. So again, saving a lot of money. NAD in skincare saves money on NAD IVs. Hyperbaric mask saves money on paying tens of thousands of dollars for a series of hyperbaric chamber treatments.
For skin specific.
Yeah, if you only care about your skin. So this is something that will improve the entire routine that you're already using. You're feeling that you're getting great results with your routine. Fantastic. You're going to get even better results.
Yeah. Well, this has really been great. Thank you so much for taking the time. Is there anything you would like to add?
We spoke about a lot of things here, and obviously you asked fantastic questions. And what we try to do is obviously go from how skincare looks like and what we do with that information that we provided. And we actually have a podcast that does exactly that. We talk very little about our own products there, but what we do, the evil plan of the podcast, is to create. If the Young Goose products are the artist, we are trying to improve the canvas. What we're trying to do is to give you tools and tips and tricks, etc., on how to improve your entire health and obviously skin health in order for us, our products in the end, to give you better results. That's the secret. But really, it is a nerdy deep dive into how to biohack your skin's age.
Yes, and you don't only get to listen to us there, but to like experts from all different industries, because there's so much translation to skin health. So you can find different ways to support your skin health, be it through nutrition, through exercise, through so many things, mindfulness. So we have experts from all those areas to help you really, figure out how to do it from within, because that's also part of our philosophy that, we're just one aspect of skin health. We can help you with everything we can, but there are so many other things you need to take care of, and we can help you, guide you through it.
We even recorded an episode right now, it's not out yet, about vaginal health. So we really are covering the gamut there.
That's good to know. I have listened to your podcast and I really enjoy it. So I will link that down below. And I'm glad you mentioned that you can have the best skincare in the world, but you can't neglect sleep, nutrition, exercise, all of those things. It all plays into it. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So thank you so much for being here and for creating such innovative products.
Thank you.
It's absolutely our pleasure. You're a great interviewer, and we really enjoyed it.